there are two books which I read occasionally: Letters to a Young Contrarian by Christopher Hitchens and The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. In light of the recent cancellation of his planned presentation at Berkeley in the US, I feel that it is necessary to show some solidarity by creating this satirical video. I will preface this with the notion of doubt that I will ever reach a level of expertise to be considered to speak at a venue the likes of which Richard Dawkins is used to. Having said that, let's begin. Recently, Jerusalem has seen a surge in violence. Callous as it may seem, I think that we can explore this issue without becoming aligned with either the Jews, the Christians, or the Muslims. In fact, it is entirely possible that members of either of these religions will somehow be offended by what I am about to say. Let me indulge myself by claiming success in advance by expecting them to unify in their contempt for my message. We can expect these fluctuations between a tentative peace and open hostility to persist. So in this case, I think that it is perfectly fine to address the origins of these barbarities with ridicule. I say origins, but it is basically the same origin, where three tribes of people are believing the same myth, but do so with many different interpretations and great discrepancies, and thus creating many sub-tribes. I assume you know of Moses. I always thought that he was some sort of fictional character who was being played by Chuck Heston, the actor who also played Ben-Hur and Detective Thorne in Soylent Green. However, it seems that I was mistaken. When I became older, I figured out that this Moses figure had far more clout amongst the religious, and particularly the Jews. Strangely enough, it is said that Moses, like Jesus, survived a great surge of filicide, became a closeted Hebrew, Egyptian, and after he killed another Egyptian who was beating a Hebrew, he fled Egypt and ended up on a mountain where it is said that he saw a burning bush, which commanded him to return to Egypt to save the Hebrews. After having done all this, with 10 plagues, parting the Red Sea and all of that, he again ended up on a mountain, where he was given 2 stone slabs with 10 commandments on them, which they put in the Ark of the Covenant, after which he and the Israelites went on a gloomy walk for 40 years, and after which they found the Promised Land. He died at the age of 120. And some 500 years later, the Jews supposedly built the Temple of Solomon, in which it is said that they kept the Ark of the Covenant. Now, the funny thing is that all of this is highly circumstantial. There's actually no evidence of the existence of Moses, let alone of the existence of a burning bush that spoke, stone tablets with 10 commandments on them, or the Ark of the Covenant for that matter. In fact, we may doubt the existence of Solomon's temple for that matter, as empirical proof for it having ever been built in the first place is nigh impossible to get, thanks to the continuous religious tension. So we have arrived at the first of 3 issues that keep this city on edge. Jerusalem is a holy place to the Jews because a legendary figure has brought stone tablets to a temple of which we cannot be sure that it ever existed. This is the first shady element in Jerusalem's violent past, present, and future. We now step into the time machine to visit the Morlocks. We jump ahead some 1400 years and arrive in the time of Jesus. Most of his supposed life took place in and around Jerusalem. We have still not determined whether he actually lived or not, and if he lived at all, he was possibly some eccentric Jewish preacher. Aside from that, Jerusalem is the place of his conviction, failure to be pardoned, incarceration, and execution. The myth of the massive zombie walk, described in Matthew 27 verses 52 and 53, and his ascension which is described in Matthew 28, verses 5 to 7, did the rest to cement the myth of Jesus Christ and the holiness of Jerusalem. The Christians afterwards constructed the Church of the Holy Sepulchre on the spot where all of this burying and resurrecting is supposed to have happened. I have to add to this, just in case that you didn't know, that Jesus had to die a horrible death to redeem the human race from the sin that Adam and Eve committed. Two people who never existed in a garden that never existed with a talking snake that never existed. Remember, you are born sick and commanded to be well. So now both the Jews and the Christians have it on divine authority that Jerusalem is holy and theirs. So who else is there? Yes, it's the Muslims, of course, the people of the last and final word of God. Mecca, the birthplace, and Medina, the place of death of the Prophet Muhammad, are the holy cities. But it turns out that Muhammad, around the year 620, had some kind of a hallucination and imagined that he flew on the back of a burak, which is a donkey with the head of a person, from Medina to the farthest place of prostration, supposedly in Jerusalem, and then ascended to heaven to have a chat with God. First of all, there was no mosque in Jerusalem at that time. In fact, the first version of a mosque was built roughly 7 decades after he died. Secondly, it certainly isn't the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which wasn't even completed a quarter of a century after Muhammad had died. For some reason, however, this story was convincing enough to Muslims that they too found divine justification to claim Jerusalem as one of their holy places as well, thus ensuring that this violence will go on for ages to come. A temple that probably never existed, the Ark of the Covenant that was never there, the horrible death and subsequent ascension that probably never happened, and the midnight ride on a flying donkey, which no one witnessed, are the foundational principles upon which more than 1,000 years of hatred and death have passed. In all honesty, Richard Dawkins is far better equipped to address these issues than I do. I did this one out of pure solidarity. This is not my area of expertise. Let it be said that criticism of religion should never ever be a reason to bar a great thinker and speaker from addressing an intelligent crowd. To cancel this presentation is pure cowardice and shows the willingness to commit intellectual suicide. Thank you all for watching. Tomorrow I will return with my usual repertoire of climate change and energy related videos.